And that, once again, that isn't to say that we shouldn't necessarily, like, maybe Monster Life
He's
does
not
have to come down.
wrong,
Like,
but
if we're in the wrong band, we just need to lower it, and that's fine. Like, we will get to the point where that is
He's
fun,
not wrong with
but
this
we'll
philosophy,
do
in my
that
opinion. They just
by
went too
making,
far the other direction.
while still making sure that we have
Like for
a,
like
a
early
good
campaign,
experience
specifically
for,
right now.
you know, like, well, ideally for everyone, right? Like, it should be the case with that is balanceable to that way. It's just a lot harder in PoE2 context.
Well, I think a large portion want like bosses to be what is the challenging content, whereas right now it's almost the reverse, where there's so many clips of like people like dodge rolling away from like packs, right, and they're getting chased down, maybe not having a counterplay, and they're like, oh my god, I'm just being chased down. So
this is like
also,
not my
I sort of
experience at all.
disagree on the Act 1 changes in PoE 1
In the
not
campaign
being negatively
chat,
received. I do remember there was quite a lot of people that really
in the
didn't
campaign,
like
we
that,
literally didn't die a single time to trash.
because of what
all
you
of our deaths were
mentioned
bosses.
with like the
Like
faster
one
monsters
shots from
is
bosses or
generally
some
a bad
kind of like
thing.
insane overlap.
So I definitely do disagree with that.
Just because I'm a like to have things to actually go and start to address. Like, can I get a gauge on what you think is like where in the game it starts to become a problem, or do you think it's like just straight out of the gate?
Straight out of the gate.
I,
like the even the second zone, like the first zone might be okay, but the second zone with the wolves, it's like pretty like instant, where I don't feel like I'm getting that like ARPG playstyle.
But won't we be hurting more players than we're helping with that?
By making monsters
won't that
slower?
immediately make it? Yeah, won't that immediately mean that like a ton of players who actually enjoy the game because the combat is engaging immediately, like, what, doesn't it kill the game for them? Like what I'm saying is, like, it's easy to say like, oh, you make the game easier and everyone's happy, but it isn't the case.
Agreed.
Like, a lot of people prefer the
Not
game
like specifically to
like,
the early
actually
act. I
have
think
some
it's a little
challenge
too
in it.
much, but I agree with that.
Like, for example, right?
sentiment.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? So every night I go home and I play, and I like do test runs of everything.
What a
right?
fucking nerd.
And it's like, if we made it so that there wasn't any challenge for me in Act 1, I wouldn't play the game anymore. But that isn't helping anyone, right? Like, I need to keep playing the game every night to actually enjoy myself. It's like, if I'm not enjoying myself, then it's like, how can I even develop the game correctly? So on some level, it's like, it has to be fun for me. And I know that if you, like, if you get to the point of having
He's gonna get
like
memed for
everything
this.
just be trivial, it's like, well, okay, like, why am I even playing this anymore? So that there has to be some level of challenge. Now,
there's just a lot. I just thinking more on this specific. There's a big spectrum here. Like, for example, I know I have seen the feedback of Act 1 minus canopy and mana. Feel generally good on the pacing, the speed of monsters. You feel like you can almost do no-hit runs, is like kind of what people have said. And then you get to Act 2, and it's not too bad at the very start, and then you get to the like Halani gates, and it's like, okay, now everything's gone off the reservation.
the Farradon have a problem.
And then you get
there's the Titan Valley
I've
as
seen
well.
I've seen a decent spectrum like that, and I 100% want to fix
healing
that.
so much.
Like,
Right.
so that's why I was asking you for your example, because there's just a lot of people on the different spectrums here that want different things, and so I'm trying to understand what you know, how much we would need to change things for the discussion with you as opposed to with other players.
Right.
So that's all I was asking there, because I do intend on slowing down those extreme zones, and I think there are like 10 of them. And I think that is at least something hopefully a lot of viewers are going to be happy to hear, which is like, okay, cool, they are going to address those. So the Dreadnought, Exile, you've got Canopy. We're going to start, those are the most egregious I'm listing. I'm not saying those are the only problematic ones.
Yeah.
And then you got areas like Titan Valley, which is just like riddled with annoying monsters that are just like out of control. And you got heaps of this. We start there, and we keep working backwards until we catch as much as we can. And it's going to be a lot of different changes. So one could be, okay, like, why is it that there are 6 different varieties, of which all are just, as you've, you know, heard people mentioning, and I think I saw something that you had thing, which is they're playing PoE 1. I think, which I thought was a funny comparison. Which I'm like, yeah, okay, fair enough. They need to, not every monster needs to slow down, but like, for example, some of them can be fast, and maybe the answer is, okay, they should be weaker. So sure, they engage you, but they die quick. Or maybe the answer is like, there's too many of them, and then in a lot of the cases it's going to be like, okay, here's 6 different types of packs. Well, 6 of them are fast. Well, that's a problem. 5 is fast. That's a problem. 4 are fast. That's a problem. 3 are fast. That's probably still a problem. But 2 are fast. That's probably more acceptable. So you get 2 really slow, maybe 2 fast, 2 kind of in the middle, and you get some big slow monsters, some small monsters, and that distribution isn't quite right in a lot of zones. And so this is why I asked, because I would say some zones have a nice, here are the slow monsters, and here are the fast monsters, and it's kind of cool. You get this like up and down pacing, and it can feel kind of fun, where sometimes you're on edge and sometimes you're just obliterating things. And then you get the ones where you're like, holy, I've just been zoned 3 zones in a row where I'm just on edge, getting swarmed, like absolutely. And that creates this extreme negative feeling of like, I can't do the things that my skills want me to do. And that is bad. And that I definitely want to fix that. And I want to fix that imminently. Like I'm going to immediately get onto doing that. So
No, I thought that was an
there is a
aura,
huge
yeah.
range of spectrum of players that want different things here.
Yeah.
And I want to at least address that thing because I know that's just bad. Like, I think that's bad for everyone. I don't think that's bad for some people. I think that's bad for, everyone. It's for a huge majority. So we can start there for sure.
But to be clear, though, like we still do need to have some monsters that are faster than player. It can't be that none are. And like things
Chat in
like the
game's
wolves
going,
in
damn,
in
Jonathan's
second
fuming
area,
right now.
Like, if we didn't have that, then I think that you wouldn't even like. Once again, you wouldn't get the feeling of like you would immediately out of the gate have the game as just trivial. And like I think that really would hurt the game a lot. Like I think that would be a big problem. So it's really just a question of like if there are parts that are frustrating, we'll address them. But like it isn't the case that just everything needs to be slower. It really would hurt.
So I think
there's another thing you.
I was just gonna say, I think there's almost like 2 different player bases where there are a lot of people that just want
Really?
to blast and maybe have challenging bosses, and then there are people that want like the entire
Remember that time we
gameplay,
talked about
every
PoE
second
1
moment to
versus
be like
PoE
very
2?
engaging. So it's I guess like
I don't know that I don't know that I agree with that either, because I don't think it's so binary as you say. Like there is a middle ground that will work. Like I'm almost certain that there is, and the way that you get there is by just looking at the individual cases and just fixing every one of them until like the rough edges are all sawed off, sanded off, and then and then it kind of works. And like you'll get to a point where like you just don't get frustrating
fucking
experiences
shrimping,
anymore
dude.
because we've managed to sort of fix all of those cases, and that
But you
point
can't-
won't be in a situation where
You're
just
always
everything
going to have
is slow.
frustrating
Like,
cases
we
because
really
what I
will still have
like,
a level
you
of
might not
engagement.
like,
I
chat.
guess
So I'm
the
like, this is
problem
not
with
frustrating. You go,
everything
this
being
is
so
frustrating.
fast,
So they're
and
just going to
part
have
of
to
why I
basically
pointed out
try to
like
appease as
everything
many
almost
people as possible.
is because
Someone's going to get upset,
it's
though.
such a heavy focus on combo gameplay right now, but it feels like the speed of the monsters are heavily incentivizing like one button builds. Like as soon as I could, I was like, the less I can do, the better everything will feel, just because I don't have time to set up combos. We're getting completely overwhelmed. That's why I pointed out everything as a bit of an issue.
Well, it isn't necessarily the case that you have to use a combo on every monster. Like, if you've got stuff that's fast, you don't use combos on that.
I agree,
because
combos
it's
are kinda
disrupting
lame.
you. But then also, it is also important that
Wait,
that
what am I,
monsters do
auras is not
disrupt your
active.
combos, because otherwise your gameplay just degenerates into doing like 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Like the monsters have to be able, like there has to be situations where your plans are disrupted in order to like have a situation where you can respond to things, like you actually get some counterplay on stuff like that. And so the monster designs have to reflect that on some level.
I agree, but I understand
like,
what
it's
Zizer's
always
saying.
an
Like,
amount, right? Like there's an
they
amount
want you to
of
set
that
up this
you
like
need,
3-piece
and
combo
there's
when you're
probably too
swarmed
much
by
of that
50
going on.
mobs rushing you.
But
Like,
you
that ain't
still need an
happening,
amount
Chief.
of that.
That needs to
or,
be like
you
the
know,
bonus
something
damage
flat.
used on bosses and
We've,
elites, like I am
I mean,
now.
we've been talking about like
Not like the thing
the
you
last few
fucking
days. We've been talking about some like pretty
spam.
extreme considerations and things, and like talking about the monster life is the main thing, because which you could argue is player damage, right? They're obviously
Well, it's
proportionate
monster life
to
is the
some
easiest way.
degree.
If everything is too weak, then monster life is the way to solve it.
Oh yeah, if there's a few outliers of builds that are find the tricks to do good, then yes, it is. I bring all players up or bring all monsters down. They're the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like we have been talking about a lot of this, and like actually going like, what would we willing to do here? How would we be willing to change it? What are we willing to test? What are we willing to try? And like there's heaps of things on the cards here. Like kind of honestly everything's kind of been on the cards, as long as we don't feel like at the end of the day that we've taken the teeth out of the game in terms of difficulty. Like that is what's important to us, is making the game still have a feeling of hard, being difficult. And I would say out more than just bosses. Like it shouldn't just be that the bosses are the only thing that's difficult.
Sure.
And we certainly don't want it to devolve into what I would argue is I know this is like way further away, but like, again, we're talking about changing up. It could be changing anything here. The one thing I also worry about is getting to the thing where I would argue a lot of the difficulty in PoE 1 outside of a lot of the boss fights is just like you occasionally just instantaneously die to something and you're like, I don't even know what I died to.
Yep.
And
100%,
a lot
dude.
of that is where you get like it isn't necessarily from monsters being too hard, and it is
Especially
often
for, like,
from
a
just
newer
like
player.
spam and too
It's
much
awful.
stuff going on, combined with like daemons and volatiles and all of that. So
Yeah.
making sure we avoid that as well. But it does mean in the sense that then
Yep,
you kind of get that,
penis.
like, okay, you have to have it be that you're engaging with the monsters for it to be difficult. Which kind of means monsters do need to actually pose a threat, and you need to be able to see what they're doing and react to what they're doing. Now, I wouldn't say that's universally perfect, but that's an argument for, like, you know, not wanting to get it to the point where it's too much of that, just like,
We should go over here
I guess
and
that's an
juice
argument
this
for
map.
de-swarming things, as you said, which I agree with, by the
Yeah.
way. That is like an important thing, because it is kind of getting towards that, and that contributes towards where things are slow and stuff. But I wouldn't personally argue that every zone feels swarmy. I think there's a swarmy argument I 100% want to focus on solving first, and then there's like a certain things are fast and certain things are slow, and maybe there's that. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure where I was going with that, but I just want to, I guess it's more just giving my sense of where I
don't even
wanna,
know where I am
make
right now,
sure we
bro.
don't end up is in that place, just to make sure, and we want to be real careful about not getting to that point. So I would actually say we're probably a bit too far there in a lot of the areas, but I don't think it is a universal problem right now.
I think also, especially even though warrior is or May skills are particularly strong now due to being able to use a shield, but it can feel very bad that like every damage node like has a downside, whereas isn't really the case for the other builds where like with maces it's like, yeah, you get 40% increased damage but 5% reduced attack speed, and reduced attack speed, especially with all these combos, can feel particularly bad compared to others. I would say like maces are kind of good.
I
right
agree with the
now,
sentiment
but
that combos either
a lot
need
of
to
that is a
go
shield.
and focus more on synergies again,
I actually
or
do think there is a bit too
make
much
them, like,
of
the
the.
big
I actually like a
beneficial
little
hit-on
bit of like
bosses
maybe a
rather than, like,
cluster or
spam.
two having the kind of upside downside, but it's honestly something we've aside. You know, obviously
welcome,
keystones
Jim.
have upside downside, but yes, there's true that probably there's
Always
kind of
tricky.
too many passives, especially in the warrior section, that are a little bit too giving downsides, where it was something honestly that's a bit experimental to PoE 2. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't have that in PoE 1, and we were like, let's give it a go, and maybe we went a little bit overboard with it in that part of the tree, but I don't hate it as a concept. I think it's just that it's a little bit too saturated there. I will agree with you there 100%. I would say, as people hopefully would know, we're going to iterate on that passive tree a million times, so
Yeah.
it'll
What?
find its sweet spot
This
for
game
sure.
is launch ready.
And
That's
it's
how I'm
definitely not
complaining
there
about
I
yet.
do think it's important though that like keystones can be felt, and so
Well,
one of the-
we're not talking case.
Sorry,
I
not
think
key, sorry, I
everyone
didn't mean to
agrees.
say keystone. I was saying to
Notables.
say notables can be
Notables.
felt, and so part of the reason for the upside downside thing is that like it lets you do a larger damage bonus because it's
Yeah.
got the downside,
Yeah.
and therefore you're going to really feel that damage bonus.
No, they are
And so,
good. I
like,
think
it's-
it's the frequency
It's-
of
it's
them in
finding-
that part of the tree.
But I'm
is
saying
a
that you
bit-
can find another way maybe to do that, but it's like
I feel like Jonathan's like trying to
I
hold
do
back
think
being
that,
like giga
having
angry right now.
that feeling of like I really felt that node is something that we like that is a thing that you do get, and that you know
that is important in our passive tree philosophy. Yes, is
Right,
that
right.
the before and after of taking a notable, especially the first. Obviously, nodes become less valuable as you get higher level.
I don't think this is a
wizards.
great interview. I don't
They're
think
just
so either. No,
saturating
no
into
hate
a
on
bunch of
Ziz,
diminishing
but
return, well, not diminishing return.
we can talk
but,
about
like,
it after.
you
I
know,
don't want to interrupt the interview now.
500 to 520% increase is going to matter
I
less
don't
than
think
the
it's
0
anything
to
to do with
20
him
and
as a
so,
person
but
necessarily.
especially for the first chunk of the game, we want it to be that every notable is felt. Like you're like, I definitely now can feel the difference.
He gets too
And I would
emotional
say
and it's too
a
personal
lot
for
don't
him.
hit that mark.
And he makes it
Some
about
do,
his
some don't,
immediate,
but,
like,
yeah, we've been trying new
surroundings.
things there, so
And like
Yeah.
what he doesn't like about the game,
bit
or
of a
like
pivot.
what the people in his chat said they don't like, which
so
is like an
the
echo
next
chamber.
question, I
That's
want to talk a
problem.
little bit about
Which is why
the
Jonathan's
fact
right
that,
about, like,
you have only done like the crazy
pushing
large
back on,
changes
like, I
between
don't think it's
seasons,
everyone,
and you
bro,
talked a
and, like,
little
all
bit
this
about that
stuff, you know?
felt forced to treat the game like it was released. Are
Like,
you
I
still
literally-
happy with doing only large balance changes between patches, or is that something you would maybe revisit with
talking
something
about
like every
update
2
frequency.
weeks, especially with like a warning
Like, I literally
period,
disagree
like,
with a bunch of what
changes
Zizzer
are
and
coming
said,
in
so
4
like,
days.
how's it possibly
I
everyone, you
don't
know?
think that you can just nerf people in the middle of a league no matter what.
Correct.
Like we get highly punished for that. Look, I mean, people are going to be unhappy about nerfs whenever we do them, as you know, like as we can see. Like it is actually strictly worse if you get nerfed while you're playing the game. Now we're in a position now where because things like are probably possibly undertuned, that we can just do mid-league buffs, and so that
Yeah.
means you'll see way more patch changes happening now because like it's okay to do major buffs during the middle of the league,
which we're
we just
doing-
can't do. Yeah, which we're doing now. Right.
I generated a relatively large list yesterday.
Yeah.
Which I know we have that whole philosophical discussion earlier about player power. Well, like there are many builds, many skills
Right.
that are underneath, because obviously otherwise I wouldn't be have spent a good chunk of the day going through and assessing what needs to be increased, right? So like, I don't want it to take as like I don't want people to take away from that as being like no, we're happy with the current balance. Like, obviously not. We're still going to make changes. We're still going through everything and we'll get to that sweet spot for sure, but like
I mean, it's going to end up feeling like a season of buffs this time, and the reason why it'll feel that way is because like the medicine has gone down now we can start on all of the actual like, you know, like all of the positive buff parts. And so it's like the last season we just weren't even in a situation where we could even do that, right? Because it's like you already had
we genuinely tried to. We genuinely tried to. We had this plan of like bring all the top end outliers down and then make sure everything is feeling good in the middle. And we started with the bringing outliers down. And then all of a sudden, and this is why the patch notes were so late, we were like, oh no, like we're like running out of time here. Like we thought we could get through more of the balance and
They need to hire more people, dude.
We didn't
They
get
bit off
to
more
do
than they
all
can
that
chew
we
with
had
this
hoped
game
to
right
do.
now. It feels like.
But like by that point, it's
They
kind of
won't,
too
though,
late,
but-
and so like we're going in, and then now our idea here is like we thought we were. I like literally up until the last minute, we're like, okay, we're gonna keep going. Right, let's start buffing. Let's look at weak things, and like it just ended up being too time consuming. And so the answer here is now though, it's like, well, let's just keep going. And so obviously the first few days is really like looking at all the player feedback and going, what are the biggest problems, right? And this is where you get the Act 3 changes, you get the minion builds, you get the big things. And we are trying to address all of that. And I understand just game-wide balance is a big thing. But now it's just going to be like, all right, this skill. Like, let's go. What are we changing? Going through literally every single one on every single skill tree and every single reservation. And then we're going to go, okay, well, you've still got Blood Mage and Acolyte of Chiola sitting there at 0%, 0.1% played. Okay, well, clearly not doing well enough. Let's target that and just go on and just keep... We're just going to keep iterating through until we can get as far as we can, and maybe we catch everything, maybe we don't, but like the intention is to not stop just because the release day happened. Like we had a goal, we didn't achieve that goal, and so we just need to keep going.
And do you have like a rough idea? Like you were saying you were working on a lot of things to be buffed. Do you have a rough idea on how early we could be seeing those already?
Well, we'll be seeing them continuously. Like okay, so this was a
Like 2 days.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like this was a
perfect,
funny
that's
thing
what I wanted.
because okay, like so like one of the things I think that was majorly misinterpreted, that things we're working on post, was like this was the things we were working on that day. Like literally that was that day's worth of work that we were talking about. And
say
then the
that
next
then,
day it's
bitch.
like, well, now we're doing this Act 3 stuff. And like today we'll be doing a bunch of other stuff, and like, you know what I'm saying? It's like every day we're going to be like continuing to iterate and do stuff. It's like
That's
so
good.
the idea that someone's like, oh, they're not even acknowledging this thing. It's like, well, come on, we've literally had like that was one work day.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
there's more stuff coming, right? Like,
Which
you know,
we need to be more clear about.
Sure.
We'll
Yeah.
try to be more
Right.
more specific about that. But yes,
I mean,
like,
the one that I found the most funnier with that is it's like I'm like, okay, we're gonna look into all this Act 3 stuff, but in the meantime we'll just add some checkpoints. And it's like the reason I put that in there is because like that's literally a thing we already noticed was bad, and it's like it's not like hurting anyone to add some more. So it's like the idea that we're like, oh, we're just gonna solve the whole thing by adding checkpoints was like ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
obviously that wasn't the case. It was just like, here's just a thing that I can just tell someone, hey, go do this while I'm looking at this, you know, and like, and so they did that, and so then that'll go in the next version. But you know, like it's like, then it's like the next like 4 hours after that, I'm like sitting there going through areas and trying to work out what's, you know, like what needs to improve about them.
Yeah, so checkpoints is kind of something I want to talk about with the large zones and stuff. And you posted, you made a post yesterday talking about that several Act 3 zones would be reduced in size. But as a core idea, is Path of Exile 2 being aimed more at like doing one long playthrough and finishing up one character rather than do like 5 to 10 characters and the people that are playing thousands of hours per year?
I mean, I don't. That's once again, it's not like I'm not targeting one or the other. Like your second. I mean, like if you're doing multiple playthroughs, the game is a lot faster just due to the like items and stuff that you have. Like that is definitely the case. You know, like
Well, a big thing that's missing.
Like, making multiple characters in a league is certainly something that I expect and want you to be able to do.
Well, a big thing that's missing comparatively to PoE 1 is our ability to speed ourselves up, right, on our second characters. In PoE 1, you have things like 7 league step and stuff like that. And at least so far, we don't have that many alternatives for that, and our movement abilities are completely different. No Quicksilver, so even though like we can kill the bosses faster, but since the zones are so
that's, like,
large, we can't get like the same
one of
amount
the
of
biggest
speed
things, though.
on our second and third character onwards.
Because
that we would
combat's
be
much
expecting
harder.
in
Having
PvP.
that extra gear like
Well, is
makes
the
up for that
zone
movement.
largeness issue like I mean, Act 3 was the one I
don't
would
fully
say that
disagree
was,
with
like,
what this
pretty
is saying,
obvious
but, like,
as far as like things like that
I think
go.
it's a little
But if it comes to
disingenuous,
other zones, it's just a question of what are those zones and which are the issues. And like also the other thing is that like generally speaking, like once you know how the zone works, there are ways then to like to
Remake.
to know what you're looking for and sort of how to go places and what to do. So to the extent that isn't the case, that's why like when we're looking at when we're looking at Act 3, it's not just make this zone smaller. It's like what's actually the reason why a player who is experienced is not able to find the thing that they're looking for, right? And that's where we come to like, oh, there's this whole area over here that you could just walk down and you have no idea whether or not that's important or not. And so then you end up doing that and it just wastes a bunch of your time. But like the intention is to make it so that like if you know what you're doing, then you know where to go and like you don't have a problem with that. So like that's why a lot of the changes in Act 3 are just like, okay, yeah, like you randomly get bad luck, and then the Chimera wetland has the stupid Y fork thing in it, and like takes ages to go one way or the other. It's like you get rid of all of that stuff, and then the zones won't feel so large because like you'll know where you're going and you'll know how to get, it kind of works out that way.
But I do know the layouts though, and they are very large even with knowing the layouts, just because our movement speed is like relatively slow. Like even like Matland waterways, before they're getting reworked, hopefully the rework makes them a lot slower, but I know exactly where I'm going. I'm not like backtracking into the wrong area, making it longer. It is just a lot of these zones are very long.
Like I understand that area is a challenging one, and it's hard for us to actually fix like trivially because just the way that the level generation works there's not an easy like it's not like okay, like other areas we can change the layouts very easily because like of the way that our generation works, but that area has a very fixed type of layout, and so it's going to take more effort, which is why it was on the list, because I didn't have an immediate like thing I could do that day to sort that one out. But like I understand that that's an area of concern for people, but like once again, it's like that's a specific area, and I wouldn't say that like that the issues that area has would apply to the whole game. Like that's just an area, a specific problem for that particular area.
Is speeding the player up an option? Like, is that something you'd be willing to consider?
Oh, not this boss, dude.
Well, it sort of depends on how it was done. Like,
this is basically saying I want Flame Dash and leap across the
screen
back non-stop,
like,
and they're like, no.
Before. I'm not necessarily against
this.
that, but it would have to be done in a way that didn't compromise the combat and compromise like the
It's another PoE versus
like it shouldn't be the case that you. Because this is the issue with this, right? Is that speeding up the player is if you speed up the player to the point where they're once again faster, they're always faster than the monsters, then you get back to the like combat doesn't work anymore, like combat is optional kind of like situation again. So like we would have to find a way to do that wasn't going to like break that as well. So there might be something we can do there, and we've kind of been discussing that. Because I'm not exactly wanting to subject people to like running when they're not doing anything, right? But it's just a question of finding a way to do that that's not gonna.
It's hard to say anything specific because like there's a little bit of like the moment we say a specific solution, people might hold us accountable to that in a degree, and
like we haven't tried it yet, so we can't.
We have been talking about it. We do have some options we want to try. We just don't want to talk about them before we try them.
Right.
But like, yes, I agree. Now, you mentioned one other thing there, just because I don't want to gloss over things too much, which is you mentioned the Twink unique problem.
Yeah.
Which is 7 league steps. There are many, 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 many more items in PoE 1 that you can use to streamline the efficiency on reroll. That is still very deficient, yes. It will come in time, I assure you. It's just a matter of we did higher level uniques this time. Obviously, they're not going to have low level item requirements. Maybe next time there's a more even split. I don't know. We just need to keep going with the uniques, and we'll eventually get there. We do have some designs that achieve specifically the low level high movement speed boots. We do have that as a thing that I definitely already have designed. I think it's just waiting on the art, and then it's going to go in. But yeah, there's going to be a lot more of those coming over time as well. Like that will solve itself in due time for sure. And
but is there like the question is okay? So is for damage the twinking situation is not bad right now. Right?
This boss
It's not
Like,
as
damage.
for
It's
my
not
build.
as bad.
So I need
Again,
to-
you
I
can
need
kill
to
stuff
It's
fast.
the
blow
movement
things up on the
speed
ground, just keeps
specifically
dashing
that we're-
around.
that we're
And the
talking
fact that
about.
we don't have movement abilities, like in the same way, like there's only so much speed you get with shield charge. Like if I'm doing like a third or fourth character, I can definitely get enough damage, right? It's rough on my first character,
But you don't
at least
have to use movement abilities as the solution to this, and I would prefer that that wasn't the solution, because then you end up with a kind of like pretty lame sort of gameplay thing going on. Like there's going to be a better way to improve that without having movement abilities
As
be the
said,
solution.
we have some things
yeah.
on the cards.
Yeah.
We just need to test them out and try them and be able to actually have a good argument as to why they are good, and we convince ourselves,
Right.
damn, we should have done this before,
Right.
or they're bad, and we're like, here's why they're bad, and we can explain what we tried and why it's bad. But yeah, again, it's we're always a bit on discussing what those will be, because yes, again, they're being held accountable. People get their hopes up for it, and then we have to say it doesn't work. So like, there's a little bit of like, let us just try these things, and then we'll see what we come up with, and we'll tell people the moment that we have it. But again, it's not a piece of. It certainly is something that's come up, and will come up every single repeat of the league, and so it's not like off our radar by any means.
Okay, that's good. So obviously a bit of a different question, but on console, debuffs have the option to be at the bottom of the screen. Could that be a toggleable option for PC? Just can be rough to like
I'll look
move
into
your
that.
eyes.
It wasn't,
Yes,
it wasn't on my
please,
radar.
good.
We might be able to do something.
We
with
have a full buff UI rework going on
Oh,
at some
really?
point soon. It was
Fucking
planned for
USA.
earlier, where so this can be part of the consideration, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, our
Thank
UX
fucking
guy's
God,
currently
dude.
working on. Has it on top 5 of his list, kind of thing, of things that we're going to just do to improve the system.
That wasn't to do with moving them, but we can add that to the list of things. that
Correct,
we might
yes.
use
I mean,
to
it's
do.
the
If people-
whole
if
they
people
go
like it, we
they
do
can
it.
go behind the boss's life bars and
Yeah.
all that problem, and hopefully if it's good enough as well, we can port that to PoE 1, because it's a more egregious problem there for sure.
Yeah. The next question is about in PoE 1 we have a lot of player agency over how we solve early problems. Like the skill tree has a lot of temporary fixes for a build early on, where if your gear isn't up to scratch, you can get 30 to like strength dex int, you can get leech, you can get resists, even like specific ones like fire, cold, lightning, etc. You can get very easy access to fixing mana and stuff like that. And a lot of things that are like temporary fixes that you later on fix with gear. And the crafting bench also helps a lot more with that in PoE 1. And I know runes are meant to be the solution here, but we don't really get enough sockets early on, we don't get enough gear early on, and we then don't have any way at all to really fix this.
Oh, what's he talking about? Like not having
So
enough resistance stuff at the beginning?
Why is it that you're not getting enough sockets early on?
Well, they're just not dropping. Even if you're checking the vendor, like I'm checking the vendor every time I level up. I'm disenchanting everything. I still don't get enough
is kinda right about
because the game is very difficult right now. So you try to keep getting gear upgrades. There is not enough loot. There is a lot of people complaining about not enough
I
drops.
don't get that. I don't get the same experience of not getting enough socketables personally. Like, I would say that probably 80% of the gear I'd be wearing pretty much through the whole campaign would have sockets like in there. So like if that's the case, then like there must be something I'm not understanding about like why that people are feeling that way, because that's just like a totally different experience than what I see when I'm playing myself.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
I would
the,
love
the,
to.
The intention.
Sorry, go on.
The intention is that you use socketables to fix
Sit
those
down,
problems,
dude.
and it is fundamentally identical to the crafting bench as far as the resultant, like ability to fix issues on your character. Like there's nothing about the crafting bench that really changes anything that way, other than it's being less intuitive to use for new players.
Well, it is
so
a lot
really it's just
stronger.
to make.
Well, there's the power. Yeah, there is the power.
Well, okay, so sure, there's the power, but like then that's a different question again, right? Like if you're talking about fixing problems, then that just comes down to the values on the mods, and like what those should be.
Which aren't
but-
necessarily right.
Right, but the thing is that it's supposed to be that you're getting enough sockets to be able to do that. And I mean, I don't buy stuff from the vendors. But it just as a
Mark
qualifying
seems
thing, I
like
don't buy
the
sockets from the vendors and do that thing. I
secretary
know people do
of
that.
Jonathan
That's
that's
not
trying
a
to
thing
make
that I'm
sure
doing.
the
I mean, I might
boss
do it,
doesn't
like,
say
if I've got
anything
like
too angry
like
in
a stack
public.
of 9 shards and I'm like, okay, I want a socket right now, I might like do that, but generally speaking, that's not what I'm doing. So like, there's clearly some disconnect here. As far as like what the amount of loot that you're getting versus what I'm seeing, I suppose. So like, I guess I just need to understand why. Like, why does it feel so different? For
It
different
might be
people like
quite. It might have a relatively high swinginess or something that we need to find a way, like adding more. Like I know something that was suggested was adding.
I mean, I agree this
artifices
is here. Like, it's
rewards,
fucking hard to get sucked into
fixed
gear.
quest rewards through the game to minimize the RNG outcome.
Right.
Like,
Because we
Act 1,
added
Act
those
2?
quite late. We
Yeah,
didn't
forget
end
about
up
it.
putting them in
That's true.
the.
So that's something
way.
that we could definitely do, which would mean you just get more of them during campaign, and I'd be totally open to that. Like, that's totally reasonable.
A second thing I'd like to do soon is explore. I mean, sort of unrelated, but is that casters don't have their weapon crafting bench,
and we do need to.
want to add
do need to
sockets
fix.
caster
We have to add
weapons.
sockets to caster weapons. That needs to come as well.